Hello everybody, thank you for joining me today. Thank you Rochester City School District board members and the New York State Education public policymakers and funders. My name is Jennifer Blaze. I want to talk to you a bit about plumbing. The plumbing that goes from the Rochester City School District schools directly to the prisons. So it's commonly referred to as the school to prison pipeline. And I want to propose an alternative and propose that, it be considered, and I challenge everybody watching to think really hardly about education and keep that in the back of your mind, what that means to you personally and how your education has impacted you as an adult, and how you think it would impact these kids that the Rochester City School District is working with, right? The population. So the school to prison pipeline. There's a number of different factors that play into this trend, and what it describes is basically students that are going through an education system that just sets them up for failure, and subsequently they leave the schools, or they drop out of the schools, and inadequate education doesn't cut the standards of the real life and working, and so they're subsequently seeking to supplement or improvise to provide for their needs and for the needs of their families, and maybe doing illegal activities and incarcerated as a result. So I digress. A contributing factor in the Rochester City School District that's prevalent based off the Metro Justice Report that I've provided on my PowerPoint, which is accessible to everybody on Blackboard. But it suggests that 1 in every 10 students in the city school district in 2012 and 2013 was suspended. 3 out of every 10 students in 9th grade were suspended, and 9th graders, it's an important grade level, because according to this data, 9th graders are 2 times as likely to drop out school if they're suspended. So suspension, basically for me, it's a means of what this data suggests. It's a means to kind of temporarily kind of suspend the behavior that's being disruptive within the school system. Especially if you look at 88% of the suspensions in 2012 and 2013 were for nonviolent offenses. Safety is a really important factor, and I don't want to undermine that. Especially when the school's in charge of all these other students, they're acting loco parentis or replacing like the parents they're acting on behalf of the parents in order to provide for all these other students. So there's a number of conflicting needs that they have to keep in mind. So like I said, I'm not undermining the importance of safety in the school setting. All I'm saying is, if 88% are nonviolent offenses, and in 2012, 2013, 49% were for disruptive behavior. It's like, is suspension really the answer? I mean, suspension is just essentially saying, we're going to just move you along for a little bit and then put you behind intentionally, because there's proceedings that happen before a student is suspended. So the student gets behind, they get frustrated when they come back, and it just contributes and escalates the behavior, and so it's not necessarily the solution, but that's not why I'm talking about it. And in the interim, when students are suspended, where do they go? Right? There's classrooms, but there's no instruction there, and there's no work for them to do there, and they're surrounded by other students that are suspended. So are we really perpetuating, or are we helping the problem, or are we perpetuating the problem by punishing students for behaviors that they might have adapted as a means to communicate? It's just their way of dealing with different situations, and the school district is just incapable of understanding, because they just don't have the time to understand the student that well. So I digress. Rochester City School District is plagued with poverty. 1 in every 2 children in Rochester is living in poverty, and that's an alarming high rate. not to mention the success, well, the graduation rate in the city school district is 43%. Rochester graduates 43% of its students. So given all these statistics and all these issues that are kind of plaguing the city school district, like, what are we going to do, right? I think there's a lot of potential, a lot of ways that we can kind of, we can work with the system that we have, but it just requires a little creativity and tapping into the resources that are already there. So my proposal is to publicly fund a homeschooling cooperative. A homeschooling cooperative, what it would look like is you'd have parents of students that are work together under the, like a coordinator would essentially be guiding them and developing their individualized home instruction plan that would be geared and targeted toward that student, because the parent would know what works best for the student and how that should look. And so kind of working these different parents' needs and the students' needs along with other students and parents with similar needs, and maybe if there's certain components that they want to integrate into the program, or it can be based on quadrant. There's different ways to go about it. If you have a coordinator in different areas, or if you fund coordinators in order to provide this service, then you can make it happen and at least provide it as an alternative for families. And so, the families essentially would get together and say, I'm going to I'm not going to coach. Well, yeah, coach, right? I'm going to teach or coach math on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays from 9 to 12 or something. And so the other teacher, they're weaving the resources. Okay, I'm good at this. Let's do this. I'm good at this. Let's do this. And they're building relationship with the other parents and the children, and in a smaller setting, and using and tapping into the resources that the school district already has, and the public library has, and the rec centers have. So it's not necessarily that it's not using the resources of the public school. It actually is, in fact, using the resources of the public school, and it's just working in a different way. It's a different educational kind of approach to address the students' needs, guided by the parent. The coordinator, another role, the coordinator would be responsible for ensuring that the student and the parent are working towards what's required, and making sure that the student is graduating with a high school equivalent, but just at home or in the community. These homeschool cooperatives, they can integrate different cultural components, be a bit more inclusive maybe to the needs, and be able to be a bit more creative in how they engage learning of these students, because I think inherently human beings have a natural inclination to want to learn, and it's just finding out how to tap into that. And I think I think who's a better person to do that than a parent, right? That knows their kid, our community, that knows the kids that that they might have grown up with, I digress. The way that the funding would work is you'd fund the coordinator. In addition, you'd fund the parents for their time and for the resources that they're providing, maybe through tax credits, maybe through vouchers. If the school district's able to fund these charter schools that are being selective and who they want to bring into their schools and push back out to the city, then I would hope that there's some funding to offer to parents. So somebody's presented to me, what if the parents aren't educated, the parents aren't engaged? I'm like, that's where the funding comes in, right? So if there's a financial incentive, not to mention the incentive of educating our children, I don't think the issue is that parents don't want to engage. The parents would love to engage if they had the means to do it. It's just, not everybody's brought up in the same socioeconomic situation that can be able to afford it and do it. And then the certification requirements of teaching, there's different maybe things that can make up. The problem with homeschooling is that the research is it's sparse. There's just because the standards in homeschooling and public school are they can be viewed like, how do you evaluate student achievement? And so although the studies that have been done suggest that homeschooled students do at or above the level of public school students on entrance exams and on SAT exams and on Regents exams. So if achievement is the concern, I mean that there's studies that back that up, but the other data that suggests some parents that don't have the certification do a better job than than teachers that have certification. I mean, there's just not enough data, and the resources haven't been invested really to do so. And I often wonder if there is a political and economic reason as to why that is. But I'm grateful that you guys at least took the opportunity to listen to my proposal, and I hope that you really consider homeschooling, publicly funded homeschooling, cooperative as an option to address some of these issues, especially some of these behaviors that parents are probably better equipped to deal with than the city school district. And so thank you again, and I hope that you consider it and kind of open your mind a little bit to the possibilities that this great city has to offer. Thank you very much.